Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a book review from the Give Yourself Goosebumps book series, and it's book number 5, Night in Werewolf Woods. I'm not gonna lie, this is not my favorite Goosebumps book by any means, especially Give Yourself. This is kind of a disappointing Give Yourself Goosebumps book. It still has its charm, has its scary moments, but all in all, I just found this book to be all over the place, and the endings are some of the worst endings in Give Yourself Goosebumps, I have to say. I want to say it has the worst ending I've ever read, but cumulatively, it has a lot of bad endings in here. More than average. And they're all kind of cringe, in a way. It's disappointing, because I loved this book as a kid. I don't know if it was the cover. Maybe I had a sentimental attachment since it's werewolf related. You know, I'm obsessed with lycanthropy. It's like something I've always been interested in growing up. I love to see werewolf lore and werewolf stuff utilized in horror movies. I have a soft spot for it. That's why I wanted to do a werewolf review-a-thon in the Goosebumps franchise, which I'm doing with Michael Goosebumps fan and Monster Blood, and I'll have their channel links in the description. But this story kind of sheds the mold of your average Give Yourself Goosebumps book, where it has like one divergent moment. This book tries to have multiple divergent moments, which ends up causing it to be all over the place, and it just becomes a hot mess. You would think this story is just about werewolves, but it's about a quarter about werewolves, and the rest are about different stuff, I guess. And it's just not what I remembered it to be, and it's not what I would hope for it to be. It's one of the easier books to get if you are trying to get into the Choose Your Own Adventure Goosebumps book series, Give Yourself Goosebumps. This one is very easy to obtain. I recommend getting your hands on it, maybe to try it out, but I don't recommend getting into it first. You know what I mean? This one will definitely not leave you satisfied. I'm just going to say that. So, to give you kind of a rundown, you are the main character in every Give Yourself Goosebumps book. And it's no different in this story. You and your family are visiting this place called Woods World. And Woods World is basically this lakefront destination set in the summertime for outdoorsy families that like the camping atmosphere and just being on the lake and being on the water. Will go there on vacation. On this vacation, another family comes with you guys called the Morrises, and they have a kid named Todd. Now, Todd is considered explicitly in the book a nerd. And Todd has this really weird thing that he collects. He collects pewter figures, and he keeps it around in this red tin box. And this red tin box sets off this multitude of issues in the story. All right, so what happens is when you and your family and your family's friends, Todd's family, arrive here, you have to basically be told that you should hang out with Todd. Todd doesn't really get much social interaction. He doesn't have much friends. You need to hang around him. Immediately, almost, a group of kids come up and take Todd's box. Now, Todd is extremely broken up about this whole thing that happened. And you start to feel bad for him, but it gives you an option in the story where you can feel bad for him and go try to help him get his box back, or you can just let him cry and go off do your own thing, and eventually you'll come back to helping him in some way. That's the first divergent moment. And I have to say, it immediately kicks off into the werewolf stuff, which I really enjoyed. There's this whole concept about these caves, and they go into these caves that may or may not have some werewolves in enchanted boxes within the caves to help enhance your abilities to counteract the werewolves in some way. But you also have to avoid this pit called the Never-Ending Pit, which if you decide to go down that route, you will come across an ancient or thought to be extinct pterodactyl that you can use to get out of the cave and get eventually to a good ending, one of the good endings in the book. Or you can continue down the Never-Ending Pit and have probably the scariest scene in the whole book, dealing with this elevator operator. That was pretty creepy. But for the most part, the whole cave thing, dealing with the wolves, they have multiple sections to this cave idea. So that being just one section, another section involves the bully kids end up in there at the mouth of the Never-Ending Pit, and now you're forced to try to help them. And there's some like very cringy endings, and I don't mean it like in a scary way. Like I mean like they're bad. Dealing with this cave of wolves. And in some paths you can take, the lights you choose to follow in a signal will take you down that way to the wolf caves, or they'll take you down another path. And another path, if you take the white lights, I believe, they'll take you down this other path that kind of skim the werewolves a little bit more, and they get more into the weird stuff in the book. So there's this whole arc with this evil troll with magic abilities that can control your mind and make you basically his slave. And he's trying to enslave the whole camp. That was wild. I did not remember that reading it the first time when I was younger. It felt new to me reading it this time. There's this whole mini arc dealing with fire ants. And you have to pick. Okay, so going back to these boxes within these caves. Okay, so there's these enchanted boxes, right? And if you open them up, you got these two options. You can take these things called Smart O's or Strength O's. And I kid you not, if you take the Smart O's route, you'll have a more fun time because you get a sentient werewolf, and you get to get some revenge on those bullies that took Todd's box, his red tin box. Because somehow the werewolves think the red tin box with the pewter figures or some type of powerful enchanted thing that needs to be in the cave and be respected or whatnot. Same thing with the trolls, kind of. If you go the Smart O's route, it'll take you that route. If you go the Strength O's, however, that's where you'll get some really weird stuff happening. Mainly with the trolls. And this is where I feel the story was just all over the place. It felt like a lot of stuff was just being thrown at the wall, seeing if it stuck. And it just didn't feel good. You know what I mean? Not really much to review here because basically the endings weren't that good and the payoffs weren't the best. Basically, it was just going places throughout the story. And it all takes place within one night because it's, night in Werewolf Woods. There's a bunch of diverging moments. A lot of stuff that feels like it came out of nowhere because it literally does. It just fails to stick. And basically, in a nutshell, that's Night in Werewolf Woods. Yeah, this is just all over the place for me. It's hard for me to really collect my thoughts on this because I just don't know what to think of it. Some redeeming parts of the story is dealing with the werewolves in the cave, specifically in the Never-Ending Pit. That was probably my favorite part of the whole book. Todd was kind of funny throughout the whole book. He offered some banter. He got me to chuckle a little bit, so I appreciate Todd as comedic relief. That was probably another thing I enjoyed. I really enjoyed some of the imagery in this book. It was willing to go dark, surprisingly. But my negatives with this book kind of tank the book in a way. For starters, this is probably one of the biggest farces ever in a Give Yourself Goosebumps book. I mean, it's advertising werewolves, But a good chunk of this book is centered around trolls, okay? I think more so than the werewolves. Even though the werewolves are kind of like, if they're not the focal point in, Arc A, they're still in Arc B, but they're kind of like side things, and they're not treated as well. And I didn't like that, because I got this book to read a werewolf book. I didn't get this to read about trolls, and like, trolls trying to enslave people. It's just so wild and out there. That stuff could work in a Give Yourself Goosebumps book, but I feel like it's so out of place in here. And I feel like they were trying to go for this whole, like, haunted land kind of atmosphere, like this is enchanted land. It felt more like a fantasy book than a summertime camp book, but it had its adventurous moments, but it just felt kind of out of place for a werewolf book. You know what I mean? There's this girl, Lauren, in the story. She's like the daughter of the Woods World park owners. She was in and around the story. I kind of wish they did more with her, because she had some interesting elements thrown in there, but, weren't elaborated on all that much. Yeah, and it just nothing really felt like it worked tremendously. And I think the part of it was the lead-ups and then the payoffs. There was one moment where I thought it was about to get really good, and then it just ended abruptly and gave one of the worst endings in the whole book. And that kind of bugged me. And it was one of those things, dealing with the cave, going down and picking one of those cave options you're exploring, because the cave is basically the hub of the book for the most part. And one of my favorite paths that happened to be going had one of the worst endings. So I was really irked with that. Alright, so in a nutshell, what I would rate this book from a 0 to 5 stars, I'm going to be honest, I'm just going to cut flat off the top 1.5 right off. Nothing felt like it worked in this book. It's not bad by any means. It's still well written. There's still some really good redeeming parts. I just find it on the lower end of average. You know what I mean? I don't think it's a bad book, so I don't want to give it lower than a 3.5 or like a meh rating, because I did get some quality enjoyment out of it, but I just think it's lower end of average. So from a 0 to 5 stars, I rated this a 3.5 out of 5. Kind of a letdown. So yeah, basically that's what I thought of Night in Werewolf Woods. Let me know in the comment section if anyone has read this book. Did you love it or did you hate it? I'm dying to know, and I'll see you next time.